We're going to get started. We have a really packed and exciting STAR session. We're going to cover a lot of details this afternoon, but Catherine and I want to kick it off by just give you an idea of the big picture, what's really going on, what STAR means. Okay, so we'll spend a few minutes on that, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms. Does it work? Yep. All right. So I have just a couple slides. If you could bring maybe the intro slides. A couple thoughts about STAR. STAR was started, I think the idea behind STAR was born almost 15 years ago. I think we funded our first project 12 years ago. And you heard from John this morning, we have probably close to almost 50 projects now, 40 plus partners. We spent $25 million. So we've been on quite a journey. Okay. An exciting journey, and that's why I think we want to give you the big picture before we dive into the details. There's two things that are really important to know about STAR. The first one is that it's 100% powered by the community. Okay, it's you guys, it's us. This is our program. Every dollar we spend comes from the community. It's really important because not only it is our program, but it also makes us very efficient. We don't spend a lot of money fundraising, marketing, pursuing big grants because of this community. And it made us very efficient. Now, you heard about the 100% rating and the Charity Navigator. All those things are there because we spend almost all our resources, all our money on efforts on program, deliver programs to you or the STAR program. And I think last year, if you look at the annual report, we spent 92 cents on a dollar on programs. You're not going to find too many charities who come even close to that. And it's all thanks to you. So big round of applause to the whole community here, please. Okay. The second thing is, even though we spend a lot of money, and the scientists will tell you, we're very deliberate and very strategic about what we spend our money. And I will explain you why, because it's a very complex, crazy business we're in. And when we started, there was really nothing going on in terms of partnerships and companies working in CMT. So we had to really think about a strategy, how to change that. Okay, so the whole theme behind STAR is how do we bring partners to the table to work with us? Okay, and I'm going to say a few words about that. So if I go to the first slide. My first slide is really, why do we need partners, right? And the first reason is this is really a crazy business we're in, the drug development business. There's been a lot of studies, and in general, in average, it takes about $1 billion to bring a drug to market. It takes over 10 years, and most of the time, it doesn't work. Okay, so we're not going to do this by ourselves, right? It needs really some very strong partnerships to make this happen and to overcome this very difficult business. Essentially, it costs a fortune, it takes forever, and most of the time it doesn't work. Okay, so this is the challenge we're facing. Okay, and so we cannot do it alone, right? And the pharmaceutical industry has learned how to do this, and they have tremendous resources. But when we started, they were not interested in CMT. There were no companies working on CMT, even 7, 8 years ago. And this has changed dramatically. The other reason why we need partners is even if you're successful, it takes tremendous resources to do clinical trials, or even after that to, oops, how do I go backwards? There we go. So I covered the first point, right? Why we're in a crazy business. Then it's such a large-scale business, even if you're successful developing drugs, you need a very large-scale partner to bring it to market, do the clinical trials, et cetera. The third reason, which is really important, is we need a portfolio of solutions. We don't need to put all our eggs in one basket because it's so risky. We need to have many projects, many technology, many partners, because many of those are not going to work. It's like when you talk to your financial advisor about retirement, he's not going to advise you to put all your money in one company stock or buying junk bonds, because you'd have a really bad retirement. It's exactly the same idea here. The way you manage risk is buying more diversified. So you'll see over time we've developed a lot of technology, a lot of partners just to manage the fact that this is a very risky business. And then we'll need more than one solution. It's not like one morning we're going to invent a pill and CMT is going to disappear. There's going to need a lot of different treatments for different types, for different advancement, for different issues, for different presentations from people. So over time, we'll have to develop different cocktails of treatment. So that's why we need so many partners as well. Okay. And then last but not least, every time we have worked with industry partners, we have learned a lot from them. So it's been a great leap forward every time a great partner has been involved with us because we've learned a lot and it's moved our ecosystem forward. Okay? So now that I've made the case of why we need partners, let's figure out how we do this. So basically, the basic idea behind STAR is how do we make it attractive to bring partners and companies to work on CMT. So it boils down to 5 things. You know, it's easy. There's a 5 tip of the STAR. So there's 5 major things we've been developing since the beginning of STAR. First, we started by developing a group of experts, because many companies know about their technologies, but they don't know about CMT. So we have a really fantastic STAR advisory board. Many doctors are here. We've been growing it with new technology. So whenever a company wants to know about CMT, they know who to talk to. Okay. The second thing is, of course, often a company needs money, so we help them on the funding side. Or bigger companies come to us and say, what projects do you have that are interesting that I could potentially take over and bring to market? And we see more and more of both of those things. Okay? The third one, the green one, is really important. It's what's called a preclinical infrastructure. So before you put a drug into humans, you need to test it in different models, cells, animals, etc. And we've developed an extremely efficient, low-cost network of partners, technologies, processes, models that a company can come to us and on all the major type of CMT can do very fast, inexpensive tests and evaluate very quickly whether the drug will be potentially successful in CMT. So we get a lot of engagement on this right now. Okay? And then the blue part, the clinical trial, this is really the new frontier, right? Because more and more companies now are running successful preclinical experiments. Now they want to move to the clinic, which means they want to start putting drugs into patients. And I'd say today this is the biggest inhibitor still, because a lot of companies think it's too expensive. You know, there hasn't been a successful clinical trial for CMT, so they say, well, it's too risky until someone else does it. And CMT is also perceived to be a slow progressive disease, which is not always, but which means clinical trials will take a long time, require a lot of patients to see a difference, which will be very expensive. So we've done very specific things here. First, from day one, we supported the wonderful organization called the INC, and you have Mike Shai and David Herman, we'll talk about this afternoon, that has been developing a wonderful clinical infrastructure around the world. We also developed something called biomarkers. We spent a lot of money developing biomarkers, which are ways to detect a change earlier and faster. And a lot of those things are actually being used or studied. We see a lot of interest from companies in some of the new biomarkers we invested on. Okay? And last but not least is you, the community. Partners really want to talk to you. And Catherine will talk a lot about it this afternoon, what we call patient and partners. And basically, the community has a big role to play more and more now that we're getting closer to the clinic. Okay? So if you look at all the money we spend on STAR, it's really being along those 5 things, with evolving around time from preclinical to more clinical to more projects. So the question, how is it working, right? So I'm going to show you all the partners we're working with today, right? So I put them in 3 different categories, the major kind of solutions, the ASO/RNA interference therapies, the gene therapies, also CRISPR, and then what's called small molecules. So you're going to see a list of companies, and then you'll see the color codes for everything we do, and you'll see of what we do, what we work together with them on. So you'll see what part of STAR is actually helping these companies. And I'm not going to go into details. I just want you guys to see the big picture. You know, 10 years ago, this would be the picture. There was nothing on this page. Okay. About 5, 6 years ago, there would have been maybe a dozen names, half a dozen at the most. Okay. So here's the picture today, as of last week. So this is on the RNA world, okay? You see a lot of preclinical work, by the way, the gene therapy world, and the small molecules world, okay? This is what we've built in the last 10 years. And each one of those little squares means that we, together with the work we've supported, are working with the company on something specific to bring a drug, a CMT drug to market. So when I look at this picture, it's hard to describe how much progress we made. This is the best way I found to convey the progress of STAR in the last 10 years, okay? Does it mean we're done? No, we're not even close, okay? But when the page was blank, I felt a lot differently than I feel today. And when I see this today, I feel tremendous hope, for my son, for all of you that I talked today, because there's so much diversity, so much talent, so much power between all those companies, so much interest in working with us, that we know good things will come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. Did you all think I was going to push him off stage then? I've got 2 slides, he said. So, just to reiterate what Gilles said, we're not just saying that STAR and what we've built is big. We can show you how big it is. The CMTA is the largest global philanthropic funder of CMT research. I'm going to say that again. The CMTA is the largest global philanthropic funder of CMT research. Yes, we also provide really hugely valuable support and education through the CMT community. Many of you are involved in leading that. But our research capability and year-on-year level of investment in CMT is unrivaled. And that's due to the power of STAR and the CMTA's strategy to accelerate research, which, as Gilles said, it was established 15 years ago. But STAR power is community power. Every single dollar that we spend comes from you. And because we're the only CMT dedicated nonprofit with that perfect 100 mark from Charity Navigator, as Gilles said, you can be sure that every single dollar is spent and donated and goes exactly towards achieving our goal. And that goal's up there, and develop treatments for CMT. So what does that look like in reality? What am I doing every day? So we mentioned 23.8 million invested in the last 15 years. 4.8 million of that was last year. All of that has come from your fundraising. And we do that through our comprehensive strategy. So we have 32 experts on our STAR advisory board. If you're on my STAR advisory board, can you stick your hand in the air and give everyone a wave? Can we give these people a round of applause? So we have a handful of them here today. There's 32 of them in 5 different countries around the world. So we really benefit from that global expert knowledge. The projects that Gilles said 50, there's actually more than 60. That's why I look so tired. And we cover all those areas Gilles mentioned around gene therapy, small molecules, discovery of new types of CMT, investigating biomarkers and natural history studies. And we also have a comprehensive research toolbox, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And those partners that Gilles showed on the screen has really exploded in the last 5 years. And then the final part there is patients as partners, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute. So these are the 4 main areas of STAR that I keep juggling in the air. So we have the toolbox development, our sponsored research projects, alliance partnerships, and then patients as partners in research. So that toolbox development section. So without a CMT toolbox, CMT research would be really difficult, if not impossible. So the CMTA's toolbox was a real breakthrough for CMT research. When STAR first started, there weren't the animal models and stem cell lines that we have today, and researchers and biotech partners really need these to help learn about CMT and test their potential treatments. The FDA requires that treatments are tested in these models before we can test them in humans. So we invested in creating the largest CMT toolbox, which helped to catalyze that interest in CMT research and removed barriers for others to get involved. If a company first has to make an animal model of CMT before they can even test their treatment, they're less likely to want to do it. So we make those for them. So this is what we have in the toolbox right now. We have stem cell lines and the largest CMT biobank. It was established back in 2014, so we've had a lot of years of making sure that there's cells available for research through there. We're also adding new lines all the time. I spoke to somebody with 1B the other day who lives in the New York area. I was like, please, can we have your blood? So we are adding new stem cell lines at the moment to our portfolio with NICEF. We also have the animal models. So we cover a whole range of the different main CMT types of animal models, and then on top of that, we're also developing cell-based assays, so reducing the need for animal models and making sure things can be tested on cells in a dish first. And this is how the CMTA is accelerating research, and it's why so many of those companies Gilles showed want to work with us, because we can talk them through those models, we can tell them which ones are going to be the best for their research. So moving on to that sponsored research now. So the StarPot, Gilles mentioned STAR takes a broad brush. It was a portfolio approach, and that makes sure we've got all of the bases covered so that we can develop those new treatments. The main research priorities that we have, the genetic therapy approaches, the small molecule targets, and gene discovery efforts. New gene for CMT was just discovered last week, and that keeps adding to the new discoveries that we're finding. And then also clinical trial readiness and biomarkers, because it's all well and good having these treatments, but we need to understand how the disease progresses in you to understand if those treatments are working. When we get to the STAR breakout sessions, each of our researchers is going to talk a lot more about these areas and how they relate to the different types of CMT. So the other part of our work that Gilles already talked about is the wide range of companies through our alliance partners. They come to us for that toolbox access. They come to us because we can give them preclinical testing in CMT models all the way through to first-in-human clinical trial design. And that's really bespoke support. So the companies who are outside, who you've talked to, we're working with all of those to help them with their treatment development. And we give them access to the key opinion leaders and also facilitated patient focus groups. Several of you have taken part in those focus groups, and it really helps those companies to understand. And the FDA wants to see that those companies are engaging with you, so we help that. We have over 40 alliance partners, and we carried out over 18 preclinical studies just in 2022, and some of the partners we worked with are up here. And then the last part, which I'm not going to go into in any detail because we have a section after the breakouts, is patients as partners in research, and that's how you get involved in CMT research, and we want all of you to do more of that, so I'm going to share a bit more of that later. So this is, before we dive into this afternoon's program, this is the big question that I think many of you will be hoping will get answered this afternoon, is can you cure my CMT yet? And right now, unfortunately, the answer is no, but we are getting there, and I promise you that we are working tirelessly to get there, and we will not stop. The work is difficult, and it relies completely on your support. But it's a really easy promise for me to make because I, like so many of the staff and board members here at the CMTA, I don't just answer this question, can we cure CMT? What I do every day is I answer this question. And this little chap, when I get home, he's going to ask me that because he's asked me it before, and that's why it's easy for me to promise that we're going to do everything that we can to advance these treatments for CMT. And that's because the CMTA is completely community-powered. With your support, with your fundraising, we will achieve that goal of developing treatments for CMT. So on that note, I'm going to introduce the afternoon's program. This is what we've got in store for you. We've got some amazing speakers, and they're going to be sharing updates on all the progress we're making across the different CMT types. So straight from here, we go into the breakout sessions. If you are wanting to stay for the type 1 breakout, you're in here. You don't have to move. If you're wanting the type 2 breakout, type 2 and unknowns, that's going to be out of these doors and right. It's the room that's immediately opposite. And then if you want the type 4 sword and GAN breakout, it's just over towards the left, and there'll be people shepherding you into that room. So I'm going to ask you in a second to move to those spaces as quickly as you can. And then straight after that, we'll have a break. And then we're going to come back in here for the patients as partners in research section. These timings are off because we started half an hour late. So just add 30 minutes to everything you can see there, and it'll be right. And then we've got Dr. Shai and Dr. Herman on clinical trial readiness before we welcome Gina Sweeney to close the day. So without further ado, and to try and keep us on time, I'm going to invite everybody, please, to head out.